Hi everyone. This video is going to introduce our new unit, Unit 2, which is going to be about solving and graphing inequalities. Our first thing that I would like to do with you is to just do a quick reminder about our inequality symbols. All right, so we have 4 different symbols. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so hopefully you remember a little bit from last year that this symbol right here, this first one, oh, I shouldn't do that underlining thing. Okay, so our first symbol is this less than sign. Okay, so hopefully you're taking notes in your notebook right now. And this little bar, okay, that adds to this less than sign makes this symbol less than or equal to. Okay, so if you go by that, this third symbol is going to be a greater than sign. And our last one, because there's a little bar underneath, that's half of an equal sign, you can think of it like that, is going to be a greater than or equal to. Okay, great. So if you didn't remember that, please make sure that you know these symbols. Okay, so our next thing, right, part of our unit topic says graphing inequalities. So let's start with that. I'm going to show you 3 ways to represent an inequality. So here we go. The 3 ways to represent an inequality is by an inequality symbol, number line, and interval notation. So this would make more sense with an example. If I said this, okay, let's think about how you would read this. You would read this, you always start from the left or from the variable. In this case, it's x. X is less than 3. That's how you would read that. All right, well, how do you represent that on a number line? Draw yourself a number line. You always add 0 to your number line and the number that is important. So here, 3 is important. If we're saying x is less than 3, all right, I'm going to draw myself an empty circle. I hope you can think about, why is it an empty circle? And hopefully you say, well, x cannot be 3, right? When you say x is less than 3, it doesn't include 3. So you have to have an empty circle at 3. And less than means less than. So you go to the left of the number line. And anything under this bar that I kind of drew, that's less than. Which makes sense, right? Here's -1, that's less than 3. So all these numbers to the left are the solution to x is less than 3. Okay. Our last thing is interval notation. This one is just you have to memorize the rules. So if you think about it, the smallest number that this could be is what? Okay, hopefully you said -infinity. That's a tricky one to come up with on your first try, but it's -infinity. It could be as big as you want it to be, right? So -infinity. So the way I'm going to write this is parentheses, -infinity, because that's the smallest it could be. And then comma, and the biggest it could be is 3, except it can't be 3, and therefore I use parentheses. Parentheses means you are almost there, so let's see, let's write it as cannot include this number. Infinity also gets a parentheses because you could never touch infinity, right? Infinity is it's a concept, so you use parentheses for that. All right, let's do a few more examples here. Okay, so here we go. Example 1. I would like to represent x is greater than or equal to -3. Well, that's my first way of representing this inequality. My second way to represent this is on a number line, where I always include 0. The number I'm going to write here is -3. X is greater than or equal to -3. Well, that means I'm going to write a circle, except this time I'm going to color it in. Why am I going to color it in? Well, the inequality says x has to be greater than or equal to. So therefore, it actually includes -3. So I'm going to shade that in. And greater than means go to the right of the number line, which makes sense, right? 0 is greater than -3, so this should be included in my solution. So I shaded my solution, and anything under this bar will be a solution to x is greater than or equal to -3. My last way of representing this is by interval notation. So again, we start with the smallest number it could be, which is -3. So here I'm going to start with -3, and because I'm going to include -3 as my solution, I'm going to use a bracket. The bracket symbol means include the number. Okay, so -3 is the smallest, comma, and what's the biggest number it could be? Hopefully you all think it's positive infinity, and you don't need the positive sign there. So it's going to go from -3 all the way to infinity. And again, because infinity is just a concept, you could never actually include that as a number. You're going to use parentheses, which means don't include. And that's the 3 ways you can represent x is greater than or equal to -3. Now please pause this video and try the next 2 examples on your own. The prompt will be to represent these 2 inequalities in all 3 ways. Hopefully you have tried these on your own, and here are the answers. Okay, so x is less than or equal to 8. On a number line, you have 0 and 8. Less than or equal to means you include the 8, and you go to the left, shade in all your solutions. The smallest, that's number 1, 2, and the third way is interval notation, where negative infinity is the smallest, and it's parentheses because you don't include it. 8 is the biggest, and 8 is included in your solution. Okay, example 3 will be number 1 is x is greater than -3. 2, we have a number line with 0, -3, greater than means empty circle, right? Because you don't include the -3. Shade in your solution. -3 is the smallest. You don't include it, so it's parentheses, all the way to infinity and parentheses. And that's about it for how to graph an inequality and write it in interval notation.